Okay, we're back. We're live. We're Think Tech Talks, and it's Wednesday, if you hadn't noticed. And today is Hawaii, the state of clean energy, which Hawaiian Electric helps us with, and Hawaii Energy helps us with, and DBED helps us with. So thank you very much, you guys. Today we're going to talk about new developments in storage with an entrepreneur in California, in Berkeley, where I think God lives in Berkeley, right? Or at least the God of technology lives in Berkeley. Okay, we have Lauren Tanakawa. She's from the Energy Accelerator, and she helps Brian Ho. He's with Ballast Energy. So welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you, Jay. Happy to be here.
Nice to have you here. And Brian, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Jay.
Brian joins us by Skype, of course, because we're high tech. Streaming live around the world every day. 4 hours of original programming, and the rest we replay overnight in our what we call the midnight playlist. The midnight playlist is great at 3 o'clock in the morning. It'll keep you up. It'll actually keep you up. But our special news story, Darren Pai, representative of Hawaiian Electric, is here. He's got some photos to show you, and he's going to tell you about something that that has waited to happen for a long time. It's finally happening. What is it? Tell us, Darren.
Thanks, Jay, for this opportunity. Well, last week, Friday, on the 31st of January, we formally deactivated Honolulu Power Plant. It's been serving our customers on Oahu for nearly a century, but really thanks to the tremendous explosive growth of clean energy on our island, and really our customers stepping up and conserving energy, the need for the plant just simply wasn't there anymore. So what we've done is we've deactivated it. It's no longer part of our regular fleet of generation. We're sort of putting it into a mode where it can be possibly reactivated if we have some type of major emergency like the tsunami that hit Japan a few years ago. But as of the end of last month, Honolulu Power Plant's no longer part of our regular generating fleet.
Wow. So will the you had the ceremony already, so we can't go down there for a wine tasting or anything.
Yeah, well, we didn't really have any type of ceremony or anything. It was really a lot of work being done and kind of still being done to get the plant ready for the next phase here at being deactivated. But and we do have some pictures to show you because Honolulu Power Plant has really been a pretty significant part of the growth of not only our city but our overall state over the years. Its history goes back 94 years, built down here on Honolulu Harbor, and as the ships used to come in, Honolulu Power Plant was there. But over the years, as our generation needs have grown, Honolulu Power Plant was there to help meet those energy needs. But as we've said, really the energy landscape has changed, and we're moving away from oil. We're using a lot more clean energy. So it really wasn't necessary to maintain the power plant as part of a regular fleet.
Yeah, it's a great historical piece, though. I mean, was this the original power plant in Hawaii?
Well, what we see today down at Honolulu Harbor is not how it originally was.
Sure.
Back in 1920 or so when it was first built. But the site and the plant that's been there over the years has grown and changed. And it was really the first major significant power plant in Honolulu, of this type. But really, a lot of the credit goes to the employees, the people who worked at the plant over all the generations, because their mission was really to serve our customers, to serve the energy needs of our community. They did so, and we really honor that legacy of service, and we want to continue that going forward because we're in a new era of clean energy. And but that doesn't change the standards of service, because we still have to meet our customers' needs and make sure that we take care of them.
In Sydney, there's a museum called the Power Plant Museum, and it was an old power plant, and they converted it to a museum. So you guys have to think about what might be possible. I mean, there it is, the foot of Bishop. It's Bishop Street. Everybody sees it all day. Huge, profile historically and physically right now today. Just don't make it a condominium, okay?
Yeah. Well, we're preparing the plant to be reactivated if it's needed.
So
hopefully we don't have that type of emergency. But we saw that in Japan a few years ago when they had the tsunamis hit, and a lot of the regular generating fleet wasn't available to them anymore because of safety concerns. They went back to their older oil-fired plants that were in this standby deactivated mode, and and they really needed them to meet the country's energy needs. Hopefully we don't have that type of emergency situation here, but as a utility company, we know we always have to be prepared because our customers count on us.
Darren, we want you to be prepared.
Well, that's our
We're
job.
with you on that 100%.
Yeah.
We want you to be ready for all possibilities and be able to deliver secure power to us all the time.
Yeah, well, that's our job, and that's what our people work very hard day in, day out to do.
So step us through the photographs. Can we see some of them? Can you tell us what's what? There's the first one.
You're looking here. This is, back in about 1957 or so when the current building was put up, and it was formally named after Leslie Hicks, who was the president of Hawaiian Electric at the time. We have some shots of the inside of Honolulu Power Plant over the years. People don't get to go inside and see and look around very much because it's, it's an operating environment. There's some safety concerns, but really there's not a whole lot to look at. There are these large and industrial pieces of machinery that are the generators and other pieces of equipment. Everything is safely sealed up as necessary to, make sure that there's lots of machinery in there, tons of steel that's moving very quickly. So it has to all be packaged very carefully to make sure it can operate safely. But we know that that you don't get to see inside the power plant too often, but really there's not a lot to see. But our employees are very proud of having served our community for so long, and we want to continue that tradition of service going forward.
So question, this is really an important thing in the sense that we have arrived at a place in development of renewable energy that lets us take a major plant like this off. This is a major plant, right?
Yes, it is.
Take it offline. Okay, so is there a sequence for other plants maybe that will also come offline? Who's the next one?
Well, we've got a plan to deactivate or retire generating units across all three companies. We serve customers in Oahu and in Maui County through Maui Electric Company and Hawaii Electric Company on Hawaii Island. So the Shipman Power Plant on Hawaii Island has already been deactivated.
That's in Hilo?
Yes, yeah, that's on that side of the island. We're looking at the generating units on Maui, and there are a number there that are scheduled for deactivation in the years going forward. So, across all of the systems, we're seeing that this growth in clean energy is leading us to be able to take some of these older, less efficient oil-fired units, take them out of service, and it's really a sign of the progress that our entire community has made.
It is a sign. It's a brick and mortar sign. It's one thing if you read a chart, see the numbers and the graphs and whatnot, It's another thing when you see them take a plant offline. That really means something.
Yeah,
it means we really have achieved some new level of clean energy.
It really does. It's an accomplishment that our community should be should really look at this and say we've made some significant progress. There's still a lot of work to do. There still a ways to go before we meet all of our clean energy goals, but we're on the right path.
Yeah. Well, I think people also want to take note of the fact that this is a historical piece. Remember that was Princess Kailani. She pulled the switch there in front of the palace, and there was the first lights, west of the Rockies or something back in 1890 or 1885. So here we are now. This is also a historical moment, and what it reminds me. I don't know how, but I'll ask you what it reminds you, Lauren. What it reminds me is that Hawaiian Electric has been with us a long time. You can make a chart of all the historic developments that have happened in the state, starting in, 1910 or whenever you were established, maybe earlier. And you can sort of measure our progress by what Hawaiian Electric has done and been over all those years. Hawaiian Electric is Hawaii's electric, and it's part of all of us. We're deeply ingrained and intermingled, interwoven. Our history is interwoven with its history. And this sort of makes me think of that because it's a historical event happening right now.
Well, we certainly feel that way. We feel that we've been really deeply involved in a part of our community ever since the company started. And over the years, it's really been about those connections with our customers and our communities and providing the service. It doesn't matter if you're talking about our operators in the power plants, the folks working in the offices downtown, or those guys who are out in the bucket trucks, hooking up the lines and restoring power during a windstorm. Everybody feels the same commitment to our customers, and that's what we're all about.
Yeah, well, I think people have to understand we're in a dynamic now. Maybe we've always been in a dynamic. To some extent we have, we must have, but now into clean energy things are changing. And in fact, you guys are, Hawaiian Electric and the PUC and a number of members of industry and government are involved in this conference in Maui in March, which is really going to be important. I'll tell you why, because it's called the utility of the future. We are moving, changing, and this will reveal at least some of that dynamic going forward. Very exciting. You're going to be there?
I'm not personally going to be attending that, but we will have folks from our company that will be attending that conference, you know, and I think one thing you pointed out that this is a pretty significant landmark development, but there's always little signs of change. Some of them are more dramatic than others. Some of them involve deactivating a power plant. Some of them are just you know, every day trying to process more applications for customers to install rooftop PV. Some of it's just the work our engineers are doing to operate and maintain and upgrade the system and really develop a modern, really efficient, dynamic system that can help us better serve our customers. So there's always little signs of progress, and some are big and some are small, but the important thing is that we always keep moving forward.
Yeah, and it seems like to me there's more happening now than ever. I mean, on a per diem or per month basis, more happening now. But I need to get rebuttal now from Lauren. So what do you heard this conversation? What do you think? Comments, please.
I think progress and transformation are two of the key words, and that's sort of where our organization fits into in helping us progress from what we are the traditional view of energy here into what we see as the clean energy future of Hawaii.
Yeah. Well, I think we all agree. That means you have to come back soon and talk some more.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Okay.
That's Darren Pai of Hawaiian Electric. He joins us here in our studio in Pioneer Plaza at the core of downtown, just a couple of blocks from his office, I guess. Yeah?
Yeah.
So it's easy for you to come down again.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Darren. We're going to take a short break and switch around in the studio. Be back in just a minute. Aloha, I'm Jay Fidel of ThinkTech. We have some news for you. In addition to our ThinkTech TV show and our Asia in Review show on Olelo 54, as of January 1st, we're adding Community Matters to play also 2 hours a week. Check out thinktechhawaii.com for the specific times of each of these shows. We hope you enjoy all three. Mahalo, I'm Jay Fidel. Okay, we're back. We're live. Darren Pai from Hawaiian Electric joined us in the first part of the show, and now it is different. We have Lauren Tonakawa, who is with the Energy Accelerator, and Brian Ho, who joins us by Skype. Thank you for being so patient, Brian. He's with Ballast Energy in Berkeley, California, where God lives. Yeah. Well, the tech God.
Not a
anyway.
problem at all.
So let's start out, if you will, Lauren, by telling us a little about Hawaii Energy, and Energy Accelerator rather, and you know what it's been doing. And I want to hear about your move. You moved recently. I want to know about that. Okay. So what's the situation with Energy Accelerator?
Sure, I can do a quick update on that. So we, in fall of 2013, we selected 50 new companies, and just last week we had what we call our Seed Week, where we brought our 9 seed companies, which Brian and Ballast Energy is one of them, out to Honolulu, and we hosted them here for a week in our new space on Bishop Street. We moved out of Manoa Innovation Center, and they...
Where are you on Bishop Street now?
We're in the Cades building.
The Cades building is only a block away, not even.
Exactly.
Which means you can come back down again for more shows too. It's only a step away.
We're right up there.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the companies were able to form relationships with mentors, investors, a lot of the network here in Hawaii, and really get to know the market here and see what their fit is.
It's all consistent with my view of energy. Energy is the tech was supposed to be. And you guys are filling that niche. You're finding tech in energy.
Exactly.
You know,
I think I've heard you say that before.
I'll say it again too. Not now, but later. I'll say it again. Okay, so what does it mean to be a member of a cohort? I mean, how did Brian get into the room here?
So what we do is we take about 200 applications a year, and we select only about 5% of that. So this past cohort, we selected 15 companies. And what we really look for is their fit here in Hawaii, their ability to address some of the challenges we have here, as well as the fit within the cohort. What are the synergies within the cohort? How can they help each other out, as well as get help from the mentors too.
So what exactly are you looking for when you vet them out, you know, and study them under a microscope? What are you looking for?
Well, we look at a couple things. One is the technology, and apart from the technology, we really look at the team. We really like people who are able to adapt to change, to be able to take this technology solution and scale it to the world and to Hawaii, starting here first.
Okay, so let's talk about geography for 1 minute, Brian. I'll be right with you. Hold that
No,
thought.
no problem.
Okay. What's the geography thing? Now, you know, ideally, we like to see companies, you know, if we want to build an industry in Hawaii, we like to see companies from Hawaii. Brian, I think you're from Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I grew up on Oahu, but unfortunately, life has taken me away.
Okay, well, we're going to get back to that. But, so Brian's business, Ballast Energy and Storage, I guess, is in California. So how do you build, it's not an easy question, I know you can answer it. How do you build an industry around, you know, tech and energy tech, if you will, in Hawaii by including a cohort from the mainland?
Yeah, so we like to see diversity like that. So about half of our seed cohort was Hawaii-based and half was mainland-based. And there are certain parts of the mainland companies that the Hawaii companies don't have. For example, mainland companies are usually mostly venture-backed, while the Hawaii companies are mostly grant-backed. So we like to see the synergies between there and how they can help each other out, what they've seen in their environment that they've been building their company in, and how their network that they formed there can translate to here and vice versa.
Okay, let's talk about that, to translate back to Hawaii, if you will. So you want to woo them to come back? Do you want to woo them to conduct their activities in Hawaii? Do you want to woo them to sell stuff or manufacture stuff or, you know, improve their design of stuff at UH? How do you want to draw them in? I mean, you've got to have some influence on this. You're giving them money. So what do you tell them you want in terms of the nexus going forward?
Yeah, so, well, with the seed stage companies, we typically fund their business development part, not as much the demonstration or the technology development. So we really want to see them succeed in the way that they define success. So for some of them, that may mean coming back to Hawaii and doing a demonstration project in the future, but for some, it may be going another path and exploring different markets. So our funding in this beginning seed stage part of their life of their company is to really help them determine which path they want to go. And the other part of our program, which is the growth stage, those guys actually do demonstration projects here in Hawaii. So we do have companies from the mainland that are going to be deploying their technologies here.
Okay. Well, I mean, I see if you agree with me, or maybe I'm off in space on this. I see Hawaii as an energy tech place because we have the resources about renewables, because we have the need to have the technology here in order to build our grid. And so whatever they do, wherever they do it, I guess we want to have the benefit of that technology to incorporate into our own systems one way or the other. Am I in the right place on that?
Yes, I definitely agree. I think a lot of the startups that we get applications from and the ones that we select see Hawaii as a great test bed because it has the perfect economic conditions for early stage companies like them, because our electricity prices are so high, and we have the policy to support that.
Okay, this is going to be a great career for you, Lauren. You'll see. You'll be here at this table. Looking for
I'll
that.
come back.
Okay, so anyway, so Brian, we haven't been ignoring you, we've just been deferring you. It's not the same thing. But let me ask, how did you get into the room?
Into the room. This room specifically, or the Energy Accelerator program?
How did you, well, good, I like that. Maybe you should go to law school afterward. How did you get into the business first?
Okay. Well, myself, my training has been as an engineer. After college, I went right into grad school for my PhD. I always had an interest in clean energy, and for me, I saw an opportunity in pursuing a material science background in sort of contributing to clean tech development. And after getting out of grad school, I sort of had an idea in my head about sort of a better way to make a battery, and things just kind of aligned. I had the idea, didn't have a particularly strong motivation to sort of join the corporate ladder, and so decided that it was a perfect time in life to strike it out and see if I could make a company out of this.
How long ago was that when you had that idea?
That was just about 3 years ago.
Okay, have you been working on this technology in the past 3 years? Is that what?
Yes. Yep. Really, actively for about 2.5 years. But it's been a while. Time does fly.
If I were you and I had this thought 2.5 years ago, I would have seen myself as the next Bill Gates. Actually, I would have seen myself as Bill Gates times 5, because if you can solve the storage problem, make a battery that will work overnight with all these renewables, Bill Gates will envy you. So will Warren Buffett. They'll both envy you. Yeah. You'd be a world figure, you know what I mean? And you'll still talk to us. At least you'll talk to Lauren anyway. So, did you go into this with that notion, that the world really needs storage now? This is the time for somebody to figure it out.
Yes. I think especially in the last decade, a lot of focus has turned back to storage as a sort of a key technology for bringing more renewables onto the grid. And so there's been a lot of interest, a lot of research effort going into this. And, like any sort of groundbreaking research, it takes time. And so I think it's probably taken longer than most people have thought, for the next breakthrough in storage technology. But I can assure there's a lot, aside from myself, there are a lot of smart people working on the problem, and a lot of people taking a lot of different approaches to the problem.
Well, can you tell us your approach? What's your approach to solving this problem? And we're taking notes, by the way, so don't reveal any of your IP that you want to protect, okay?
Yeah, no problem. So our approach is essentially taking a chemistry that is already commercial, which is lithium ion. It's been out there, it's been shown to perform well, and it's been out in the market for a couple of decades now, and really to trim the fat off of that, to reduce the cost by innovating in the cell design and manufacturing process. And it's the cell design and manufacturing process is actually where a lot of the cost is, but where it's typically from a research end, a underdeveloped area of research. A lot of people focus on materials development and not so much on the perhaps less attractive, less sexy part of the of battery production, which is just how do you make it, how do you design the production process, a factory, to crank these things out cheaply and at scale.
So you're building a battery.
Yes, we're building batteries. Yep.
What is this battery different than all of the batteries in the world? And if so, what is different about it?
So lithium-ion batteries, that's the kind of battery you'll find in your cell phone, in your laptop, and increasingly in electric vehicles. And people love them because they're light, they're compact, they last a long time. But the problem is that they're very expensive. And when you start talking about applications like energy storage on the grid, where you need a whole lot of storage, and you're being judged on a sort of life cycle cost basis, and therefore cost is an issue. It kind of rules itself out because it's expensive. What we're making here in the at Ballast is essentially a variant on lithium ion, where we're again sort of tweaking the design of the battery, just using all the same materials but changing the way we are building the battery fundamentally, in order to save on cost.
Well, okay, so we got a better manufacturing process and therefore cheaper cost, but when the battery comes out of the manufacturing assembly line, how is it
Yes.
different from the battery that comes out now?
It actually is very, very similar. It sort of looks and quacks like a lithium-ion battery, and that's really the important part is being able to leverage all the development that has gone in to producing sort of a very highly optimized battery chemistry over the last 20 years, and finding areas to develop that from our perspective are sort of lower risk in the development stream and faster to market.
Will it last longer? Will it hold a larger charge? Will it be more resilient, and not lose its capability over multiple charges and depletions? I mean, anything like that? It's different.
From those performance aspects, no. Which is sort of a very again sort of maybe unsexy thing to have to say is that we're not trying to make the battery
I'm
better.
trying to find something sexy here. I'm trying so hard.
We're trying to make it cheaper, and that really is when you start talking practically about the barriers to implementation of energy storage on the grid. It's all economics. There are batteries out there that will technically do everything that's needed of a battery to be a strong candidate for grid storage. And the challenge right now that everyone's running into is that to get mass adoption in the market, to get beyond sort of pilot projects and grant-funded projects, to really get there as a independently commercially viable product, the costs need to come down.
Yes, and the batteries you're talking about, are they all sizes, or are they just like big, like to hold a charge for a night, overnight or days and so forth on the grid, to smooth out the curve on wind and PV? I mean, are they these are industrial sized batteries or cell phone batteries? What?
So what we're working on are large format cells, so industrial sized batteries. But you do get to an interesting point there, Jay, with what kind of batteries are going onto the grid. It really there's a lot of different applications for batteries on the grid, and different applications will call for different kinds of batteries. So at least in the short term, there's no one type or one format of battery that will solve all the problems.
Oh, that is so important. Lauren, did you know this? There are many batteries. It's not just one kind of battery on the grid. The grid, let me articulate that and see if you guys agree with me. Because we've thought, that there'd be a black box somewhere on the grid, and you pour all this extra energy into it, and then you pull it out when you want. But a smart grid is much more complex than that, and you have all kinds of devices to do all kinds of different things, and they're all over the grid in all kinds of different configurations and locations and what have you, and they're all different. So if building a smart grid, you have batteries in many different situations. I just learned that from you, Brian. Thank you. Am I right?
You're absolutely right, and not to complicate the story too much, but while I'm a battery guy, I also need to sort of endorse other technologies out there. The smart grids, the key, one of the keys is a battery, but it's also there's other things that play important roles as well. Demand response, energy efficiency, smart transmission hardware. I mean, all these things from all different angles will come together in sort of that future smart grid, and each plays an important role.
Okay, well, we're going to take a short break, then we're going to talk about commercialization, at least from Lauren's point of view. We'll take 1 minute here. Lauren Tonokawa from the Energy Accelerator here on Bishop Street now, our new neighbor, and Brian Ho, who is our old neighbor, I suppose, now in Berkeley with Ballast Energy. At some point, I'd like you to tell us how you got that word ballast, because all I remember ballast in a submarine, And today is Wednesday, so we must be at Hawaii, the state of clean energy, talking about new developments in storage. I'm Jay Fidel. I really mean it. We'll be right back.
Aloha. I'm Nicole Horry with the Think Tech Commentary. The PUC has established an investigative docket to determine the advisability of an undersea cable connecting the Oahu and Maui electrical grids. It has scheduled public meetings on both Oahu and Maui to invite comments on the proposal. The PUC is investigating whether a transmission cable between the two islands is in the public interest and whether the benefits to ratepayers would exceed the costs of the cable, which DBET estimates would be $700 million. The PUC also wants to know about development risks and how they would be mitigated. With the remarkable increase in PV in the islands and the availability of new grid technologies, it may be possible for each island to generate renewables that meet its own demand and to have separate renewable grids for each island instead. At the same time, an island that depends heavily on a source of renewables, such as PV, may be vulnerable to local changes in the weather or an unanticipated problem with that single method of energy generation. The ultimate question for the PUC, then, is not simply whether an undersea cable is good for Hawaii, but how we can achieve layered redundancy for a resilient statewide system. ThinkTech believes that a great state needs ample power distribution, and that the proper approach is to start with this undersea cable, not only to bring the separate island grids and the state together, but as part of a strategy to achieve the security and safety of redundant systems. I'm Nicole Horry with this ThinkTech Commentary. Mahalo.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here in Pioneer Plaza. We're here in Pioneer at Rhinetown. We're doing Wednesday's show, the Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, with Sharon Moriwaki as my co-host. In fact, she's the one who invented that name. I think it was like 20 years ago. Okay, we're talking about new developments in storage with Lauren Tanakawa of the Energy Accelerator, which helps out companies like Ballast Energy. And we have Brian Ho, who was on Skype, we love Skype, from Berkeley, California, where there's a lot of tech going on, including battery tech. So we've heard from Brian a little bit anyway about his company, although I still want to know how he got the name Ballast Energy. Because I think of the ballast on the side of the of the fluorescent tubes, those are ballasts. And I think of a submarine. It's the same spelling. Must have the same connotation. What? How did you get that name, Brian?
Yeah, it's actually more along the lines of the submarine.
Really?
So, when we were thinking about a name for our company, obviously one of the very important things that us entrepreneurs do is logo and name. Our goal was, to evoke a sense of stability. And so the word ballast, we borrowed from the nautical term for, the ballast tanks on a ship, where you would take on water or put off water off the ship as your loads and changed on the ship in order to deliver stability.
What a
and
perfect
so
metaphor.
Exactly, it's a metaphor for what we intend to do with the grid is deliver stability by taking on and taking off energy as needed, depending on changing conditions.
Okay, well, I promised before the break that we'd ask Lauren if she would tell us where this is on the line of commercialization, how you take this from where it is now, in your perception, to where it needs to go. Okay.
Yeah. So seed companies such as Brian's are on the earlier side, and our growth companies are sort of here. And their next step would be commercialization, reaching out to a wide array of commercial customers. So we're not really on the idea side, and we sort of fill the gap between the idea and the commercialization piece. And so we found that working with the companies, that funding is very valuable, but the relationships are extremely valuable because those are sort of what take them from where they are now into commercialization. The relationships with their mentors, the strategic partners that's within our network, as well as the investors and all the stakeholders here in Hawaii and U.S. mainland Asia Pacific as well.
Mm-hmm.
So with
I said before that energy is the technology was supposed to be. Now I have another one. Energy is not about energy. It's about relationships.
That's very true.
And that's what's interesting is the companies like Brian's, where they're on the mainland. How do they get mentored, and are they mentored by people here, and how they can develop their commercial entities here, or is that a mix of those on the mainland and in the ballast industry or in the storage industry? How do you pull the partners together?
Yeah, so there is a mix. Our network isn't just in Hawaii. It reaches east to the U.S. mainland, then west to the Asia Pacific as well. And I can let Brian explain a little bit about his experience during Seed Week, but that's sort of what we use this week in Honolulu as, for them to get to know their mentors and everybody else in the cohort, as well as the other speakers and stakeholders that we bring in to Seed Week for them to just this is the beginning of a very long-term relationship that they'll have with them.
So Seed Week is when you guys, the accelerator, invite your cohort people, wherever they may be, to come and meet each other and say hi and talk story and share technology. Yeah?
Exactly, yeah. So there's like informal sessions as well as formal sessions. So we had, for example, a panel of investors that came to speak to our companies, and panel of corporate strategic partners, and we did a little bit around branding and story, as well as developing financials, and then they had some time to have some fun.
You're fun?
Fun is involved. Yes.
Entrepreneurs aren't supposed to have fun. But you said something about you introduced them to venture capitalists. You brought venture capitalists here as part of a Seed Week gathering sort of thing. Tell me about the financial model. I started out here a few weeks ago where you and Dawn Lippert were here, remember, together?
Yep.
Then we talked about $30 million that came down from what, Department of Energy, was it?
The Office of Naval Research.
Naval Research, sorry. I always get that wrong. Okay, Naval
We do have
Research.
Department
Not
of
the same
Energy
thing.
funding as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
You're
so
both.
both.
So it's not 30 million anymore, it's more than 30 million already. Okay. And so, you grant this out to the cohorts that you like, that you select. But now you're talking about venture capital too. Where does that fit in all of this?
Yeah, so our funding for these seed companies are sort of just a small portion of the large investment that they'll actually have over their lifetime. And we like them to leverage our funding to be able to go out and raise external funding.
Your funding comes first. I'm going to shape them up
It's like
Yeah.
so
seed
that
money.
they can get additional funding from the private venture capital markets.
Yeah, for some of the seed guys, a few of them have raised a little bit of money before we came in, and but the growth guys have definitely gone through a few rounds of investment, and we're coming in to basically fund their demonstration here and help them make the step.
Okay, and the other thing that strikes me from what you said is you are offering them advice and consultation in many areas, business in general, corporate areas, corporate structuring, marketing. I mean, it sounds like it's anything. So how do you offer that to everybody, or do you select the ones who need, consultation in one area and focus that consultation for that company?
Yeah, well, when we select them, in between the time these companies are selected and when we have Seed Week, there's a bunch of conversations between us and the companies to identify what their specific needs are and what the most immediate needs are. And that's sort of how we structure our program. So we don't have like this cookie cutter approach where we're going to do marketing. We have to include marketing here. We have to include financial modeling here. It's sort of assessing what the company's needs are and then modeling our program and who we bring in and what sessions we offer.
That's very
Based on
efficient.
that.
That's more efficient than just throwing it all at them.
Yeah.
So is it just marketing, or do you also help them in how to put a financial plan together, or how you actually get, loans if they need loans? I mean, is it that broad a way of supporting these companies?
Yeah, so some of them needed help on the financial modeling side, and some of them needed help on the branding and the marketing and sales side. So I think they found, Brian can confirm this or not, a lot of value in having one-on-one conversations between the experts and the companies. Because a lot of them have different needs where a group conversation isn't really the best way to address
Yeah,
them.
so one-on-one with private private meetings and consultation. So Brian, what did you need? What did Lauren provide you with, and how did you incorporate that into the development of your company going forward? Yeah?
Sure. So as an early stage startup, our needs are all over the all over the board. Obviously, there's a coaching and sort of mentoring needed. For us, the most valuable part was the one-on-one sessions and sort of really taking apart our business plan and our strategy for the next 6 to 12 months, and getting a lot of eyes, very experienced eyes on it. It's a little bit, nerve-wracking having, sort of seasoned professionals come in and just kind of, hack away at your assumptions and, your plans. But it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. And, if you either you grow and you learn and you optimize and you get better, or else, you stumble and fall. So for us, the most uncomfortable part of the week, which was these one-on-one sessions, also ended up being the most productive and most valuable part of the week.
I can't help but thinking that, well, this is sort of an absurd possibility, but I'd like to know if it's possible. Just suppose I write a really good business plan, okay? It's really good, and I really believe in it. And you guys help me because you like, my company and everything. And you vet this business plan around to some really tough guys from all disciplines, and they all look at it. And then we have a big meeting, and there's like 5 of them there. And they turn to me and they say, Jay, this is a great business plan. We read it, we studied it, we try to pry under it, and there's nothing we can suggest to improve it. It is just perfect. Could this ever happen?
I haven't seen it. I mean, anything's possible, right?
Brian says,
How close were you, Brian? How much change did they recommend for you?
I think one of the important parts, and one of the more recent schools of thought is that, especially for early stage startups, I guess perhaps for me to say business plan was the wrong word, because a business plan really isn't the most productive way to plan out your company. As they say, as soon as you write it down, it's out of date. It needs to be changed. The field changes so quickly. Whether that you're talking about the investing climate, the sort of the climate around strategic partners, competing technologies. Any one company's particular funding, scenario and sort of cash reserves. I mean, all these things, are dynamic, always changing. And I think the moment you set yourself up for just, executing on one single plan at an early stage, you kind of, are setting yourself up for a failure. I mean, the important part is to understand sort of the important factors that play into your business, and be able to make sort of dynamic decisions off of that as you go. And I guess in one sense, you can call it winging it, but it's an educated winging it, I guess.
What was the most valuable lesson you learned from your seed week, Brian?
I guess the most valuable lesson for us, as a company specifically, I was, in how best to spend our time in the next 6 to 12 months doing business development. Our company specifically is going to rely highly on strategic partnerships. I think people have found out over the last decade that it's an incredibly difficult job with very sort of low odds to try to take a startup and make it into a manufacturing entity in the battery space. So we'll be, doing a lot of development of partnerships to help us get into the to commercialization.
There it is again. Relationships.
Yep.
So how do we know that that when it's soup, Lauren? How do we know that the bird has flown the nest? I mean, do you want an exit event? What do you want? Do you want to go public? What is the moment of success as far as the accelerator is concerned?
Well, for the individual companies, we like them to define their own success. And our role in that is like helping them to get there. And to Brian's point about the dynamic nature of startups, that's sort of why we really look into the team aspect of it and who the people are to help lead that company to wherever their end goal or their 5-year plan leads them.
So
Is
how
there a
long?
time, is there a time frame? How long is it?
Yeah, how long
Is
do you
it
guys
like
expect
1
to be
year,
talking to
5
each other?
years?
You know, Lauren and Dawn or whoever from Hawaii Energy Accelerator, and Brian. I mean, what relationships?
When are they
of
weaned
course,
off of you?
how long are you going to be talking to each other? How long is this going to last before you don't need to do it anymore?
Well, the formal relationship for these seed companies, we say, is 6 months. And that's like for a typical accelerator, they usually do a 3-month cycle, and then they have a demo day, and then people decide if the company is investable or not. And we found that for energy, the cycle for them to reach that next level and execute on their immediate next steps is a lot longer. So for the seed guys, we do 6 months, and after that, I mean, they're still within our network. The relationship is still there, and we work with them long term.
So, in terms of relationships, it strikes me that you probably have members of the cohort who can help each other. Who have companion technology, parallel technology, synergistic technologies. Yeah. I mean, how do you handle that? If you find, for example, Brian is doing batteries, and then you find another member of the cohort is working on something that will improve Brian's batteries. That's complicated, isn't it? What do you do?
Yeah, we actually really look for synergies like that when developing the cohort. So there are actually a few energy storage companies within this 2014 cohort, as well as energy efficiency. And within those small groups, they're able to work with each other and find potential ways to partner in the future, I think.
So, but
Lessons
you're not
learned
ruling
shared.
out the possibility that these two companies would actually sit down and negotiate some joint venture or partnership arrangement to share the resulting intellectual property, right? Just like regular business. They could make a deal.
Yeah, that would sort of be at one end of the spectrum, and the other end, there may be some opportunities to partner on a project, or possibly just share networks, because they both work in the same sort of energy storage, energy efficiency. A lot of the networks that they have are very valuable to each other and within the industry, so they're able to both.
Okay, well, suppose
One more question.
Brian.
One more question. So when they finish the 6-month cycle of the seed phase, can they apply, or is it a new group that goes into the growth phase and then now move them toward commercialization? Is that a different cohort?
Yeah, so
And they graduate into the growth cohort?
Yeah, so last year we had one seed company in the beginning of the year, and they reapplied and then came back as a growth company. So that does happen, but we take applications for seed and growth at the same time, so they aren't able to do seed and growth within the same cohort. But from one year to the next, they are able to move.
So suppose Brian is incredibly successful. Suppose his efforts to make this manufacturing process really slick succeed, and he's able to demonstrate that and actually go into production on an improved production methodology, and he becomes just as rich as Bill Gates. Okay, what does the Hawaii Energy Accelerator get out of that? Brian, I hope you send him a Christmas card. You get any money?
Well, from each of our companies, we actually take 1% of the company, structured as a donation to our nonprofit to help continue our program and support the future companies that go through it. So if any of the companies in our cohort were to have an exit, that'd be realized.
Okay. Well, Brian, let me ask you, how do you see it going forward for the next year or two? How do you see your company evolving? How do you see your technology, and how do you see your relationship, especially with Hawaii Energy Accelerator, evolving?
Sure thing. So, as a company, one of the requirements, for to be part of the Energy Accelerator is that, you have, a technology at the prototype stage. So, you're beyond the idea phase and you're actually producing something. And so, for our end, this year is the point at which we really mature our technology and take it to sell. In the next year or two, our goal as a company is really to strike our first big licensing deal with a commercialization partner, and get start the build out of the production capacity to produce batteries based on our design and process. And in terms of the Energy Accelerator, I think it'll be an ongoing relationship, and as long as they'll pick up our calls, we'll keep calling them. I've seen that it's not just about the week or even that we spend in Hawaii, or even the 6 months as part of the program. I mean, seeing last year's cohort, and how they continue to interact with the Energy Accelerator, it's obvious that the access and the network that the accelerator provides for us is a huge resource. And it's not just limited to the immediate team or the immediate mentors in the accelerator. They go out and they find people who can help you if they don't know them, or they can't offer them directly through the existing network. So they're a huge resource. And as an early stage startup, all these expansion of our resources through the networks that we can get into and be a part of, strengthens our chances of success. And so yeah, I think it'll be nice if in the next year or two we can come back as a growth company. But with or without that, I think we'll continue to be part of the network.
Lauren, I think he really means it. He's not just being nice to you, he really means it.
I think so too.
So Lauren, what's going to happen to the Hawaii Energy Accelerator? You've started this whole program only fairly recently, as I understand it. How do you see it developing here in your office and in your efforts?
Yeah, we actually have some big plans we can't reveal just yet, but
suppose we begged.
We'll come back the next show maybe. But we will continue to work with companies. We'll be opening applications. We typically open in the summer, and we'll have a new cohort of companies through for 2015, and continue our funding and our relationship building there, and really help addressing the challenges that Hawaii faces, and really hope that these companies can fit into our system and help us solve some problems.
You love your job?
Love it.
Oh, I knew that. I could tell.
That's great.
Okay, well, anyway, Brian, thank you very much for joining us here on Think Tech on Hawaii, the state of clean energy. And thank you, Lauren. Thank you for coming down. We want to see you
Good
both
luck,
again.
Brian. Lots of luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Sharon is now going to close the show. Go ahead, Sharon.
Aloha, everybody, and keep on listening to us, because we'll tune in to see the seed companies, the growth companies, and hopefully Lauren will come back with her summer program as well. So, aloha, everybody, and thanks for joining us on Energy Wednesday.